Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another session of the Playtime Sessions brought to you by Jima Esports. We are Jima Esports. My name is Kevin Soltani, founder of Jima Esports. My partner, Jocelyn, will be joining us in the second session. But as always, for every week, we run the Playtime Sessions on Monday throughout the summer. It is a speaker series that we are running with industry experts from around the world within gaming and esports to highlight and emphasize great topics within gaming and esports. And this week, we have a great one, but to run back the last few weeks, just to give you an idea of where we've come throughout the summer. This is our 9th session, as I said, and we will be going, I think, till about 13 or 14 sessions. We planned for 12, but we're still, putting them on, and started out with health and wellness, went on to do gaming with Nolan Bushnell, the founder creator of Atari, where we got deep into gaming and gaming dev and where we've come to get to today's industry. And we moved on to different topics within marketing, other topics within gaming, such as today, which we'll find out in advertisement. But for the purposes of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th session, we got into legal, we got into a bit of promotion, gambling, technology. We touched on the investor perspective. And again, for today, we are talking about advertising, and all things in-game tech and ad tech. So today's guest is Miss Charlotte Cook, VP of Gaming at Bidstack in London. And if you look up what Bidstack's doing in the last few years, it's been amazing work. But more recently, the in-game gaming advertising is definitely a hot topic. We're going to get into that. But the advertising world has taken a bit of a shift in the last 6 months, cliche to say with everything that's going on with COVID. But it is taking a shift. Spending budgets have changed. A lot has changed, and the way companies are looking at the way they market their product, their services, their teams, their games are completely different, or at least have been amplified in the last 6 months. And, what you're looking at in advertising right now is a major shift from traditional to now a full digital solution. And if you look at what is going on in gaming again, we've kind of been expedited into this full digitalization of these, assets, of these, advertisement assets, where it used to be billboards and physical, reels. Now we're all digital ads. Now the CPM rates have dropped. Everything is, getting faster, not better, not stronger, sort of say, but kind of more expensive and far-reaching. More expensive in the terms that it's, a click used to get you a lot more. Nowadays, it's very expensive for that click to go as far as it did. So, today we're going to learn about what that means for gaming and esports. And primarily with what Bidstack is doing with the in-game advertisement, that's very interesting to see. This last week, we saw League of Legends for the first time do the in-game ad. And so, they did it with Honda, which is a sponsor from before. And they were able to do it seamlessly because they've been able to do this in their subsets. I think they did it with MSI a few years ago, and then they're doing it now with the league in LCS. I have to check up if they've done that with the LEC before. So we have to see how that goes with getting more, colorful ads, I guess, sort of say. It was a really subtle Honda ad that was able to, flash in the background, and to see that was a major success. So the Jocelyn's jumping on with us. Oh, there we go. Miss Charlotte's right on time, has jumped on with us. Jay, we'll say bye to you here till the second round. Miss Charlotte, how you doing? Can you hear us?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Awesome. Great. Thank you for joining us today on the session, Ms. Charlotte Cook. I gave a bit of an intro for you, and without reading, in full your whole intro, I'll let people read that. But give us a little bit of background about yourself and your words, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. Just to start off by saying that, really looking forward to our chat today. So my name's Charlotte Cook. I'm the VP of Gaming at Bidstack. Bidstack is an ad tech startup based in London. We're AIM listed here in London, and I work on obviously heading up all the gaming side of the business. So working primarily with publishers and developers to establish opportunities for native in-game advertising and brand partnerships beyond that within the gaming space, gaming ecosystem. I've worked in the games industry since I graduated university, so I feel very privileged to have had a career pretty much exclusively in games. I've worked at Sega, Take-Two, and my previous job, a company called Gemba, I was lucky enough to work with pretty much all of the major publishers and developers from across the industry on their IP. I'm based in London, as I said, and I'm a Women in Games ambassador as well, which I'm very proud to be.
Yeah, I know. It's awesome. We originally met online. I linked in you for, in reverse, what your work previously, what you had done in gaming and also with Women in Gaming, because it's kind of taken a new form in the last year, and a lot of support has come out. I know a lot of support has come out in the UK, primarily more than anywhere else in the world, with associations and federations, leading the way. So would love to pick your brain on that. But to get into it with, all things advertising and gaming, and all things with gaming and expedition with what's going on with COVID, we did get that cliche to say the 15 years, 10 years expedited fast track with everything, right? Whether you were in advertisement or marketing or everything in between. But advertisers have now tried to manage their budgets and the shift and they're going from traditional to now full digital. And that solution within gaming is so appetizing. Are you seeing that, of course, to be true? Or is that just coming in so, troves that, both sides just don't know what to do with it and trying to manage expectations?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly speaking, there was an appetite before COVID. So before sort of March of this year, when obviously we've had the global lockdowns in different capacities. But I think what COVID has done is it's accelerated that. So obviously with lots of, out of home advertising not being really relevant when people are stuck inside their homes and unable to leave, lots of major sporting events being cancelled this year, and actually using the esports arena to replicate, leagues and, still have some sort of viewership available for fans and whatever, but using the esports segment, I think what it's done is it's sort of been this perfect storm for accelerating the viability of using in-game advertising as part of the major media plan. So we've definitely seen on both sides, I think games publishers and developers now opening up more to this. You mentioned before the League of Legends opportunity. There's definitely been, I think, an acceleration in them realizing that this is ripe for the taking now, and that brands are kind of actually starting to adopt this and want to test, given what we've just come out of, what we've come through, and the shift. And I think I saw a stat from Newzoo. They reckon there's going to be 3 billion gamers by 2021. It's not going to go anywhere. And people, once you invest in a piece of hardware and you're playing on a regular basis, I think most people do pick up and play their game consoles at least once a week. So to have the engagement levels there, I don't think it's going to be going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and it did get it expedited with all things marketing plans, roadmaps, product development. You're seeing, I know you have experience with titles, so you saw with what Crucible did with the Amazon studios, and maybe, you can argue it wasn't ready. Maybe they should have spent more time on the marketing dollar or advertising, because on the flip side, with the Valorant titles and now with Fall Guys and some of these newer titles, you're seeing a major thought process go into, you're seeing a major spend that's being, spent, and capital is being allocated in the right ways. And then you're getting the results, of course, very quickly. So the expedited roadmaps are exactly that. They're being expedited if you do them well. And on the flip side, it could look really tough if you don't. And I'm sure you heard Halo just announced they're going to push back their title release. And I don't think that's such a bad decision, because like I said, maybe they're learning from the Crucible, Amazon, and then from the Valorant on this side. So I think it's a good scenario that we're in, both from the expedited roadmaps and also taking it a step back and understanding your market to being able to advertise to them. But specifically in the UK, you guys have so many game development companies. It's notoriously famous. A lot of indie game companies, a lot of small to medium tier companies, and then the larger tiers. The famous brain drain situation of coming to the West or going down to Central Europe. As far as the advertising and ad tech goes, UK is quite strong there, and it's always been the leader of advertising. Do you still feel that way when it comes to gaming and esports?
Yeah, I think we're very privileged in terms of, I guess, in day-to-day working at Bidstack, being placed in the UK, because we can go and meet with those publishers and developers. They're geographically, it's not, we haven't been able to during COVID, but you can go and have conversations, demo the tech. You sort of meet each other quite frequently, so you can keep updated on what's going on. I think the UK's sort of development talent will continue to grow. I've heard of a lot of developers doing like mini projects in lockdown, which is really cool. And I think you get these sort of spin outs from major studios where people then might go and form their own little indie studios, you said, sort of indie side gig, and make these incredible games that come out of it. I think in terms of the advertising piece, Bidstack, we work on a global level. We genuinely have interest and demand from all over the world. There's a big footprint in Southeast Asia. India is a market that's very interested in this. But at the moment, sort of North America and the UK are, the biggest in terms of driving revenue, and the ones where you've kind of got the most consistent pipeline of players. So yeah, I think it will only increase, but we are sort of, a global footprint is important. And the sort of because of Bidstack using an SDK to deploy advertisements, we can geo-target. So right. Which is great. So we've got a team working on UK campaigns, but in the same game, you can be targeting players in the Philippines, for example, right. But they will see an advert that would be relevant to them. So yeah, but the UK is obviously always going to be an important market, and great to be part of this sort of like active and buzzing, the games industry we have here in the UK.
Yeah, I say that because it's very similar to, our LA. We're based here in Los Angeles. Jassim, my partner, is based in Dubai. So, and right in the middle, we're coming to London. It's very similar, all three of those, indicative of how high level the ad tech advertisement and how the spend is going for projects. And I would like to get in later on how you guys, measure that, how you got in the different formats for that. But because of how fresh it was yesterday, and I know that you guys are targeting in-game as well, or I'm sorry, it was a few days ago, they just launched the LCS with the Honda in-game advertisement for League of Legends. Now, I don't know if that's been active in the LEC, I apologize, in Europe, but I know in LCS in America that was quite new, and Honda being a very big sponsor, it was almost like a perfect, seamless transition. It was a nice subtle banner. It was a flag. It was already there in the game, and it was a Honda logo. So it's an H. It's not too, gimmicky in your face. So it was a good start to the whole thing. Question one is, I don't know if you saw that. How did you feel about that? And question two is, what would have happened if it was like Red Bull or something, red and blue and kind of in your face? Would that have been the same response?
Yeah, I guess, obviously, they've done that, I think, independently. I think they've done it using hard coding the assets within the game themselves. I don't know that for sure, but that's an assumption based on other partners and similar sort of executions. It's very much in line with the principle we have, which is that these adverts shouldn't break immersion or ruin gameplay. They should be in places naturally that would exist within the game, where as a player you might notice it, but it's not going to distract you from what you're doing. So I would say for me, it ticked the box in that respect. Had it been Red Bull or a brand that was a bit more, vibrant in terms of colors, yes, it might have been a little bit more obvious. But I think the fact that it was just like a static logo, there's no call to action, there's no banners, there's nothing. Right. I think you could sort of have anything there really that was appropriate tie to the game, and it shouldn't break immersion. So the way they did that, I think, was the principles we would have. And to your point about it being a brand that might not fit, certainly on our side, the partners we work with, that's a huge part of. So the sort of compliance and the approval process is totally owned we own the compliance, but the publisher owns the approvals.
Right.
So they should always be open to only having brands there that they want there. And I'm sure they're applying the same logic. So yeah, I thought it was cool. And you know, for us, it's not something we've worked on, obviously, but it really just reaffirms and cements the concept of what we're trying to achieve. You know, if that had been Bidstack technology deployed there, to your point, players seeing it in Europe could have been served a different logo or slightly different branding based on those in the US, or you know, whatever. So that's sort of the step further that I guess we can take it with an SDK deployed in game.
Yeah, and you took it right there for just, you know, segueing into the next question was exactly that. It's globalizing a solution that's localized, right? So it's a very advertisement is inherently localized. That's the point of it, to get a local market to get their eyes on a global product in their local way, right? Coca-Cola is an expert at this, if not the best. So with you guys are saying for the viewers out there today, who I'm sure are researching Bidstack, and if you don't know about it already, it's exactly what she just said and I just said. It's localizing a global product in an advertisement way through digitalized, in this case, banners in game, right? So as Honda would be the LCS sponsor, the LEC sponsor might be BMW, because that's exactly the true sponsorship. So and they could in-game change that for the viewer seeing it. So I think that's very important for the future devs that are looking to innovate within their game, that this is a very gaming innovation, because you need to know, like Overwatch failed to innovate in these things. So if you look at these type of innovations to get your product to be global very quickly, I think that this is a massive piece to give you a big leapfrog, right? You're getting that massive market globally for a solution that's local. And I know I said that a few times, but I can't say it any other way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so contextually relevant. I mean, an example is like Lay's is the brand for crisps in North America. In the UK, they're called Walkers. So the same, you know, we would know that you'd recognize the logo, but if it said Lay's here, that would be completely out of context to a UK player, because that's not what it's called here. So, you know, you can have, as you say, a campaign running with a brand like that, but make it relevant to players who are in the territories where it has different branding. So, you know, and then you can do sort of targeting as well, like with products. So I think Lay's is part of the PepsiCo group, which also has like Quaker Oats. So it might be that they want to do a campaign across their portfolio of goods, and we can even time target it. So people playing in the morning might see, you know, breakfast branded ads in there, but then in the evening, it might be something that's more appropriate to the time of day. So, you know, from a brand perspective, you can kind of ensure you're doing that targeting and that relevant by time and geo, you know, so that it would make this, you know, sense in the context of the time and the location.
I think that's more important if you think about it in the short term than the long term, because long term, obviously, we need different markets to have the eyes on different products. That's you know, that's obvious. But in the short term of a day or a gaming session, a 6-hour stream, what the stream hour 1 and stream hour 6 looks like is very different. And no one's ever tackled that idea from the advertising problem or solution, right? Not problem. I guess it's a problem and solution. And so what stream hour 1 at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m., because I you know, call me weird, I watch this chess stuff going on Twitch. It's a phenomenon going on. I'm sure you've seen. I've fallen in. I'm totally in it. I love watching these streams. But at 7 and 8 in the morning, when I'm watching these guys play, I don't know, the MENA region competitors or the Asian competitors, compared to the 6 p.m. stream where it's a bunch of Americans and they're, you know, with slang terminology stuff, and the first hour needed to be broken English. So you can imagine the advertisers can advertise a different product to that MENA region broken English style, because Doritos is everywhere, right? But flaming hot Cheetos is only in America, right? So I think that was a weird but really good example to show hour 1 and hour 6 don't always speak the same language to the stream. So very interesting. I did not know that it was so customized. I mean, I knew that, but I guess we need to give that more thought in the industry, that our streams look different, not day to day, but hour to hour now. You know?
Yeah.
So for the audience, I'd like to ask, on your side, how do you work with the bid stack technology if you're a developer or with a developer? If a developer, an indie game, but not so indie, they're gaining good traction, whether for their game, product, service, and they want to use the bid stack technology, how does that make sense for them and at what level?
Yeah, so the first thing we sort of recommend is it has to be the right kind of game. So for us, we're very conscious of it being a game that would have native inventory placements available so that it's not going to look out of place, and also the right context. So I used to work at Sega. Total War, for example, as a franchise, if you had a Doritos banner in there, would break immersion and would look strange in a sort of, a Roman battle scene or whatever. So that's something we're very important with. So we kind of pillar our games into sort of open world, which is, cityscapes, real world environments, or virtual, just where you've got some billboard sort of placements, racing games, and then stadium sports sort of arena type games, because those tend to be the best for placements. And then the barrier to entry is pretty low. I mean, anyone who's a developer can work with us, on be that a huge AAA or a small indie. We work with a plethora of partners at different levels, and it's an SDK implementation, which is a one-time implementation, and it's engine agnostic, so we can work with proprietary engines like Unity or Unreal, or we can work with custom engines. So some of our bigger publishers, for example, obviously build on their own game engines, so we work with technology on that. And then it's platform agnostic as well, so we can work across mobile and PC console. And essentially what we have is a team on board to help guide through the SDK process. Once it's implemented into the game, it can either be done retrospectively. So you could have a game that's live out on the market already and you retrofit it and then for a patch release the technology, or we work with developers who are midway through their dev cycles and, we're coming in and part of that process so that when the game launches to market, the adverts will appear from day one at launch. And then it's an ongoing, obviously, tech, commercial relationship with the people we work with. But the beauty of it is, I think what BidStack did is they took a lot of time to really refine the technology. So the technology was built with high fidelity racing games in mind as the benchmark. We wanted to be able to have, 60 FPS as a minimum, really twitchy, high physics games that our SDK could work with, that the engine could render the graphics of what's happening in the game. So if a car's going around a racetrack and it kicks up mud all over the advertising hoardings, those will render to have the mud on them. They're not going to look pristine, again, not breaking immersion. And so we really spent a long time focusing on making sure it was as lightweight as possible and could work with the highest possible fidelity games, so that we know we can cater to, all types of games, all types of developers, so that, anyone, as I say, with the right fit of game really can leverage this technology as an incremental revenue stream, and start building it into their monetization strategies for their games.
Yeah, I mean, when you say it like that, when they kick up the dirt and the mud on the racetrack, that really puts it into perspective of the billboard around the racetrack, right? Mm-hmm. So if a car crashes and it knocks over the billboard, right, that there it goes with it. That is extremely high level graphics, that frame per second stuff that only, like you said, racing or FPS games are usually good at doing. And with the racing phenomenon that's going on, there's more room than ever and more to come, right? And then in FPS, with first-person shooters, for the audience out there, you're looking at very high-level graphics, but at the same time, the war zones, the Call of Duty war zones of the world that are coming in are much less graphics, as weird as that sounds, than before. So that's telling you, in order to get a large amount of audience, you got to not lower the graphic, but you guys have solved a problem that's about a few steps ahead, because that's where games like Escape from Tarkov is an extremely high graphic game. I'm not saying it's good for billboards for, what BidStack is, but in general, those high glitchy games where the mud does kick up, where you do brush through the bushes. And that's very, indicative of where the gaming is headed and what advertisers are looking at to position themselves ahead of that trend. Because like you said, the billboard will essentially knock over, and how fake will it look if it just stays there, right? So advertisers are solving that equation. And I think that racing is we saw during COVID, racing was probably the one that, took the pie for the best, solved esport, I guess you can say. But League of Legends, I can imagine for what you guys do, there's a lot of banners, not, for an active game, but you guys are more interested in like the Sim Cities, the landscape type of build, what I'm understanding, but also kind of, Grand Theft Auto is a good example as well, where you're going through a city constantly changing. With Grand Theft Auto 6 coming in, I'm sure you've heard about the in-game food ordering, purchasing of mall items. How does that play into with what Bidstack is doing? And is it capable, or, have you guys looked into that model phase 2 where you can order food or you can, click and buy something?
Yeah, I mean, that's the next step of the activation, right? And it has to be there with the right kind of game. So you'd need a game that's willing to have that. So the minute there's not really a call to action, it's more brand awareness. But if to take it a step further, and you could have it that then you can, somehow there's a companion app maybe on your phone or whatever, and you go out of the game environment, and you come back in. It's definitely something we're aware of. We've had conversations in the office about, but it's finding the right fit, the right game to do it. I think the concept of like product placement in video games, like you have in movies, is something we're going to see more and more of, and something that we definitely have had lots of conversations about internally with, brands and game publishers and developers. The tech we've built, yes, it does the native pieces, but it can essentially render to any 3D asset within a game. So be that a mobile phone, or a football in a football game, or a football shirt, or like an outfit on a character, and we can render to any 3D asset within the game. So I think, as brands maybe want to look to be, have like product placement opportunities within games, items that are kept in your inventory or become really collectible or rare, and people can trade or whatever, things like that. I think those are sort of probably the next step of activation. A big part of that on our side is the education around game mechanics. I think, as someone who's worked in the games industry, people who play games, we understand the concept of that very easily, the value of that, why it's so rare, why it's so cool, how it would fit really well. And, I think what we need to do and what we're doing is sort of educating brands and advertisers as to why this is so important and why it could work so well. And definitely seeing that being picked up on the other side with, lots of these major agency groups now setting up like gaming divisions, gaming teams to understand those opportunities, in-game, as beyond the esports piece, looking at in-game as well. But then there's, we can do like lobbies, if you're held in a lobby, ahead of going into like a battle royale game, that's something that can be monetized if it makes sense. Loading screens, cutscenes. So the opportunities are there, even for games that might not naturally seem right. If a developer wants to, there are places they could put them that we definitely could monetize.
And I think that's a happy medium to not scare off the, traditional to the digital. There's a load of Fortune 500 companies, as weird as that is to say out loud, that just don't get it, right? They will never get it, which is why the old become old and the new become the new, right? It's just the wave and the cycle of. And right now, more than ever, you're seeing that happen very, very expedited and very in the very smart way, right? And then you'll get the bad eggs trying to get in. Not the bad eggs, I shouldn't say that, but kind of like the Saudi League of Legends, marriage that didn't work out, because it wasn't a bad marriage. It was just too quickly done. It wasn't well thought out. But then you're seeing the Hondas of the world all go back and really jump in. BMW, some luxury brands really jump in and really do it. But could you give us, because you're so deep in that side of the business, that who better to tell us that, what would you recommend a very non-endemic brand do? Someone who hasn't done anything in gaming before, but now has the money, has the capital, and would like to say, hey, help us with this in-game stuff. This is the only way we're going to be spending our money, is in-game, because it makes sense. But we don't have any strategy for which game, how, when, where, why. What would you say to that, brand?
I think, if they've considered gaming as a channel, they obviously are looking at the audience they want to reach. Typically for a lot of the games we deal with at the moment, there is still a largely male skewed audience. That is changing. I saw some other stats last week about how female gaming is massively on the rise. So I think they would have to have a really clear idea of who they want to target and why. I think, and it needs to make contextual sense as well. I think it would need to be a brand that would would fit within the environment they want to go into. I think a lot of, you know, brands, what I would say is, if you're looking at this as it resonates with people who probably don't traditionally interact with channels now that have advertising. If you think, so many people, especially young people, they don't really watch television anymore where there would be advertisements. They watch, you know, Twitch and stuff like that, where there's quite limited advertisements, or they go on Reddit. They don't really, you know, they're not in places, they use ad blockers where there would be advertisements. So for a brand to be in gaming, I think shows the brand to be quite innovative, and then it might resonate with a younger audience and educate that younger audience into that brand. And then they might become a future consumer of that brand, because actually they, you know, it's quite a cool thing for them to do, that they've actually looked to gaming as a channel rather than more traditional medias. So I think it would have to align with their, you know, overall thinking of who they're trying to target. But I think it definitely shows a brand to be innovative, forward thinking, you know, and also accepting of that audiences, especially young men, spend a lot of time in video games now. And if you want those people to go out and buy your product or engage with your product, you know, the reality is if you're 18, you're probably still going to play through your 20s. So you need to build that brand loyalty, you know, up with these people now, so that, you know, to continue your brand's sort of lifespan, I guess, with people that are coming up, you know, going to start getting jobs, earning money, spending on your brand. So I think it's you know, hugely important for the right targeting, definitely.
Yeah, spot on with what exactly what I think as well, because for the purposes of, again, today's audience, most of our audience is coming from the MENA region and UK, North Europe. But if you look at the way advertising is done in gaming, and I know I've done a lot of comparing from LCS to LEC, because that's where we predominantly work, is in League of Legends. We manage a lot of players. We know it. We've owned a team and blah, blah, blah. But my point is, it's a very massive game, right? It's probably the biggest in its infrastructure of league, with championship and viewership and everything. And so the reason why I compare the LEC and LCS is exactly what you just said there. Brands are going after the youth, the male-dominated youth that are going to turn 18 one day and buy XYZ product. And so, but in America, this is just an inherent famous American problem, or whatever you want to call it, is we target them really young and we hit it hard. So for the purposes of League of Legends, it's like State Farm Insurance, Geico Insurance, where a 13-year-old has 5 years to go, or technically 3 to 5 years to go before he'll ever touch a car. And that's really indicative of where the ad dollars are being spent. And then you're seeing, you know, and the LEC, BMW and luxury brands, when they know full well the parents are not going to be buying the kids these products, but the kids might be poking at the parents for a, look, the jersey says BMW. And they have that expendable income, usually in the Berlins and Parises and Londons of the world, to say, you know what, I'm going to switch my Benz to a BMW, and my kids, you know, the jersey and everything, because it's so it works differently, but same. Right. So that's the advertising that's interesting coming up. Quick few fire, questions, whatever you want to call them, fire round questions. How does BidStack measure, its data? And is there a difference of a solution of how BidStack can serve different games from mobile to console to PC, or is it quite fluid?
So what we obviously to have targeting for the advertisers, there's an element of data we pull back through the SDK, which is all done, fully GDPR compliant. User has to consent to receiving dynamic ads, and then the data gets passed back. So that helps us obviously to build segments and audiences around the games we work with, so that advertisers can come to us and say, I want to target 18 to 35-year-old men who live in London and interested in automotive. And then we know, okay, well, these racing games are going to fit that, and that makes sense. In terms of the biggest metric in advertising is viewability. So the adverts have to be viewable to be billed. And there's a lot of things around sort of third-party verification of that, which, internally we're working on at the minute. But also we were the first, I think, to be IAB gold standard approved. So because this is such a net new industry that's coming up, the IAB, which is the International Advertising Bureau, didn't have really in-game advertising standards defined. So we've worked with them to basically establish what those standards need to look like. And, we've kind of led the way in establishing them. So that's a big metric as well. So the advertisers have the confidence to spend with us because they know that the viewability standards that are set by the IAB are being met, and that we're an IAB gold standard partner, which means we adhere to all the criteria we have to serve adverts in the game. So those are probably the two biggest metrics at the minute. I think, as we were saying, as it starts advancing into more product placement, or, looking at some of these things that are going on in esports, or sort of the metaverse, as it's being called, with your Travis Scott Fortnite concerts. Obviously, that throws out a whole other set of problems around how do you measure this, viewability, things like that. So to be honest, it's cool because everything that comes our way, every opportunity, there's generally something new you have to think about as to how you're going to report back on it. And most people who are getting into this have an understanding that it's new. But I like the fact that as a company, we're really pioneering in that and trying to set the standards so that we can learn from it. And then we've established the standard ourselves and can demonstrate the ROI, all of that, all the metrics we get back. So it's cool to be part of something where each opportunity that comes our way is pioneering and different, and we can sort of set the standard for it.
Yeah, and we didn't even touch upon, music, the revolution of what it's going to look like to break the ice and be funny a little bit for the Westerners out here. I think it was London or outside London, you guys did that festival where it had to be 6 feet apart. I kind of like the Travis Scott version a little better. Although I'm the first person to say, let us out of the house and leave us alone. But at the same time, I kind of like that Travis Scott experience better. But that's going to create a whole set of problems, but solutions to follow within advertisement as well, because that's also a lot of bankable items in that music arena. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think, the Travis, if you look at Fortnite as an example, Fortnite, the stage, did have some opportunities for banners around it. Lots of these big artists might have brand affiliations, or that they would want, be happy to do a, so-and-so concert brought to you by Coca-Cola, for example, if they have a relationship with them. So for the brands, it's an extra, piece to, especially in a post-COVID world where, as you say, we've got these weird sort of socially distanced concerts, which are potentially going to become what we end up doing. So I think it opens that up as well. And then the sort of collectible item piece to it, so the game could put a badge or a skin or a charm, that means you can show off that you were at that event, you attended that event, you were part of it. And then it becomes part of the game mechanics as well. So I think, there's so many cool options for how it can span, across multiple medias. And then you've got the sort of viewership element as well, which for the brand is, the uplift. So not only are there all those people in game watching it, but then the Twitch streams, the YouTube streams. And, I have a nephew who's 11, and he still watches the Travis Scott concert on YouTube. I think he's seen it so many times, but he just loves Fortnite, and they're always watching these things. So he's probably classic of someone who's watched it several times over, which I'm sure lots of other people do. So I think this sort of metaverse will be really cool in that respect.
I was raising my hand. I said, me too. I do it too. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was absolutely incredible. If they would have told me the next one is coming in a week, we have maybe 3 more artists and it's an hour and a half long, you need to pay $50, I would have done it. I would have totally done it. So I had a question there is, you said something, and to follow that up, I think it's interesting on that topic because it was such a massive event. It was done so well. It went off without a hitch, all the buzzwords and adjectives you can attach to it. But there was 12.5 million people, I believe, give or take, in that arena. Don't you think, or would you agree or disagree that an advertisement was been so big, so outrageously, disproportional to anything other in the campaigns or what they currently have in their lineup, that they couldn't either price it, justify it, or get anybody to get on board with that price or justification? I'm just assuming they tried, right? They tried to get BMW or Mercedes or whatever. And I'm thinking from an advert, how do you get that sorted? And it's so massive, 12.5 million live. What is those engagement number worth? How do you quantify it?
Yeah, and that's, if you start looking at some of the metrics we would have around sort of daily active users, which is a big metric for us on the games we work with, the numbers would go, through the roof. So I think this is again where, the BidStack sort of solution of a localized approach with an SDK, that might be how you could segment it up better. So, you could say that we're going to open it up so that actually we're going to do advertisements per region. So you might have an advertiser who's got the UK audience, an advertiser who has the North American audience. And in my experience at Bidstack, I've always worked on the gaming side, so I was very much learning about ad tech and the ad industry since I've joined. I think global budgets can be quite tricky to come by because most agency groups work on a territory level. So I think the way that Fortnite Epic could tackle that would be to say, actually, either we're going to just charge for one region and they're going to get all that amazing added value of all those people around the world watching, or you use something like a Bidstack SDK where you can regionally target different campaigns, and then you actually weirdly may end up commanding more revenue because you could say running 50 campaigns across 50 countries, which might be more than one person trying to pay for the whole thing. And then obviously the people watching in those territories, the brand would be relevant to them. So I'm sure, like you said, I'm sure they thought about it, and it probably was just too hard to comprehend. But I'd love to think they'd be open to kind of looking at that more regional approach, for future events, how they could look at that going forward.
Yeah, and the regionals, like you said, it's going to be so important for the globalization but the less travel, more distance, and we're this out because the regionals, again, just for League of Legends example, run the show. If you take away just the Western world, it's competitive as hell, but it's just not fun anymore because the exciting stuff usually comes out of the regionals. This, the Philippines, the Turkeys of the world. So to give not you a quick example, but the audience a quick example, we run an agency, an esport agency. So one of our players is Turkish but plays in LA. So we had a deal with Unilever to do Head and Shoulders, their version. But when he came to USA, it would have been Head and Shoulders, right? But Head and Shoulders is one of the 27 brands, or I think Johnson and Johnson. I'm sorry, the comparison, the name might be wrong, but it was the Turkish Head and Shoulders. He's got beautiful gold ginger locks, our boy. But the point is that's good for Turkey. Now, if part of my example, if I'm butchering the Unilever or Johnson & Johnson, but my point is the Turkish version and the American version, right? If the solution was like the SDK of Bidstack, in that sense, both markets could be served. And both markets with one contract, right? With one Unilever or Johnson & Johnson contract. And I think that's important for these advertisers to understand. And like you said, it's a lot of education to get them to understand just that. Already gaming's a mission. To get them to understand the globalization of the local product is really difficult, but it's definitely necessary. So I think that's awesome. And I think just to segue it there, anything that you can give us or working on at Bidstack to top up as far as, what is, possible machine learning, AI, algorithms, or things just enhancing the in-game, ad tech, is that where you guys mainly are focused?
I think data enrichment's hugely important, and it's something we have had discussions around. It's obviously that's going to be, as this industry and channel of advertising grows, there's going to need to be more and more data provided to sort of justify, I think, the spends, because I do think the cost of this will go up as it becomes a more established advertising channel for advertisers to buy into. So that's something we've always got sort of our ear to, and I think for me, like coming from the gaming side, I feel like there's some really cool stats that we can get out of the games, that we can pass back to the publishers, because there's still quite a few games that the big games tend to have it covered, but some of the small indie ones who maybe their live ops or their sort of in-game metrics might not be that might not give them that much information about their players. But some of the metrics we get back, like we can have an idea, if a player always finishes a lap, or do they just always get halfway through and stop? Because we can see the pixels of how many adverts they're seeing as they drive around the track. So we can start to sort of build insights out a little bit as well that pass back to the publisher, which may be useful for the games industry. So I think it's still early days, but I think in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, we're going to have some pretty cool insights internally that even, it might just be that we use them internally, but it will just give us a very, very cool insight into how the two industries are coming together, and then we can apply them, going forward to other projects and contracts, etc.
Yeah, perfect segue. Would love to say, first of all, congrats for the team and working with everything. I know we've heard about the traditional football side with Norwich Football Club, and what's going on there. Anything you want to plug in, anything you want to talk about there, or maybe just say what you guys are doing for the audience. What does it look like, and how the BidStack technology is going to be able to function as a solution there?
I think for us, it's, we want to be, my vision is I want us to become a consideration in a developer's development strategy and plan, so that when someone's developing a game where this technology makes sense, we're a consideration there, so we become part of their monetization strategy. I think I want to, help alleviate the fears that people might have around rogue advertisements, or sort of, we only work with premium advertisements. You're never going to have, sort of random like yellow page style adverts appearing in the game. That's not going to happen, and publishers have full approval rights and full control. So I think for me, that's kind of the vision I want to build out. So, opening up to developers and saying, if you're interested in this, then, now's the time to test it, to get involved, to see, because it is going to emerge and it is going to grow. And, and it's great to be involved in something, from the off, so that you can then look at how to use it maybe in future iterations of games to further monetize them, and how it also plays into then the whole monetization strategy. I think there was an article recently from Phil Spencer at Xbox saying that, in the next gen console era that we're about to enter into, monetization dexterity is king. You can't just have a one-way strategy. You have to think outside of the box, and community is so important in the video games industry. You also have to think of multiple ways to service your community. So, we're looking at some really cool things. As I said, with like user engagement. I think Hyperscape, the new Ubisoft game that just launched this week out of beta, the way that those guys have got like the Twitch influence part built into the game, that I think is going to become more common. And can you tie that into brands? So you've got like a sponsored challenge or whatever, an opportunity, with the Twitch integration. So I just think it's cool to be part of something that's pioneering. And what I love is in my job, I get to meet with developers and publishers and have those sort of brainstorming conversations. Okay, this is our tech. How can we, further enhance it for your game and bring different opportunities, within your game? Like we mentioned, the Fortnite thing, the charms, the collectibles. We can do all of that on a regional, local level, which is cool. So yeah, I think the team, we're growing. We're a growing business. Very high ambitions. We've set ourselves a very high standard, and I think it's a really exciting time, and there's lots of things bubbling away at the minute, which are really cool, that hopefully will come to fruition. And yeah, it's cool to be part of something really pioneering, and always these different challenges that and then seeing them come to life is really cool.
I think that we're the cliche tip of the iceberg, but really under what the innovations can bring as far as advertisement and ad tech comes, because we're seeing the physical turn digital much quicker than we thought. And if it doesn't ever get back to, the way it was in its full form, then no matter what, advertisement is going to have to pick up the slack for this new digitalization of all things. And you're seeing it with everything from the Army, Navy, governments around the world, the Malaysian government, the US Army. And I think it's a powerful tool for gaming because it can be done subtly, non-invasive, like it's done in the West more than anywhere else. So I'm excited to see what that looks like for new titles as they be built in, whether it's an API, whether it's something in-game from zero to Z to try to solve the problem of in-game and really give it the customization like Fortnite is doing, from everything with its future skins to dancing and, all things in between. And so it's very exciting to see with these new titles what we're going to get out of them and what that's going to look like for banners and everything in between. We really appreciate you. And I know the audience has been asking for this one for a while. We've been trying to get you on for better half of 2 months now. I've learned a lot from you on our calls, and I know we regurgitated a lot of that today. So I appreciate you going over that for our audience today. For everybody on today, do take a look at BidStack if you haven't already. For all the game developers that follow us and that have always asked us for different ideas, this is where you begin the idea process, because you need to look at what the brands are going to be able to, how the brands are going to be able to come into your game. And what does that look like? So Charlotte told us today what they're looking for, what games they can type of service best. and what they're going to be able to do with the gaming industry as a whole with AAA games and above. So thank you so much for your time, Charlotte. Thank you again for educating our audience. I'll see you soon in London, but thank you again for today.
Yeah, take care. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care. That was awesome. Thank you to Charlotte, Cook, and everybody at BidStack. I appreciate the team at BidStack for setting this up. We've been on a talk for a few months now with the great people at BidStack because we do respect them very highly in the work that they do. Everybody that we've had on the show that you guys know, the audience out there, this is our 9th guest session, but we have 2 sessions, so almost 20th guest on. And it just keeps getting better and better. The level of content that we've tried to provide is just a 30,000-foot view of the industry from a business perspective, innovation perspective, entrepreneurial perspective. We are gamers. We all started in gaming, but to take it from the perspective of the boring, business side is kind of difficult to communicate and translate for the gaming community. We've tried our best and we're going at it and we're still going. This is number 9, again, with Miss Charlotte Cook. We're going to take a quick break and Jocelyn and I are going to jump on for another session in session 2. Thank you so much. We'll be right back.